Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to associate myself with the statement made by Senator Okenyuri on this matter, Mr. Speaker, of abductions and killings in the country. Mr. Speaker, a time has come, and now is, that Kenyans must begin to demand real justice. Justice for the people that are being killed and justice for people that are being abducted. And Mr. Speaker, that demand goes to the government of the day. Mr. Speaker, the number of killings happening in this country must actually begin to scare everyone. And if the intention of the killers, the Speaker, was to scare this nation, then this nation is getting scared. Hardly a day passes, Mr. Speaker, before we hear reports of people killed, bodies recovered, people disappearing. Mr. Speaker, something must be done. On the matter of governance, as espoused by the Senator for Nandi, Mr. Speaker, we must admit, all of us, that this country is actually facing a crisis of governance. That 2 years into a government, Mr. Speaker, we have so many impeachment proceedings against governors and their deputies. In fact, in the history of this country and in the history of this region, 2 years into governance, into a government, a deputy president has been impeached. Mr. Speaker, there is a problem. That we must admit, that there is a problem, there is a crisis of governance. Mr. Speaker, I say this because governors have become so emboldened that actually they think that they own counties and that what they say is law. Mr. Speaker, I think I am one person who likes using the issue of impeachment very sparingly, but on this one, and to save the image of this House, Mr. Speaker, lessons must be sent to governors that we mean business. For a governor to, as Senator Dula is saying, to bring together leaders in his cabinet to plot the assassination of a senator who is just doing what she is elected to do. The Speaker, shame on that governor. I mean, we should never allow these things to happen, Mr. Speaker. And I will stand with my colleagues to demand that the governor for Isiolo be brought here, in this House. The Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That the governor of Isiolo be brought before this House, Mr. Speaker. Let him now, if this is what he does, if this is how best he deals with these things, let him now go and organize the assassination of the 67 senators of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, it cannot be that when senators ask questions on how money is being used, they become enemies of governors. Mr. Speaker, it is weird. I mean, we have been in this House before, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you have been a governor. You've been asked questions about how you have used resources of the county government of Kilifi. I've never heard anybody saying that you have threatened them for being asked questions. Mr. Speaker, these governors have become semi-gods. You know, they have elevated themselves to the level of semi-gods that they can never be asked anything. Mr. Speaker, a time has come that this Senate must restore the dignity of this House. And I see this, Mr. Speaker, well aware that I've seen today that there are things happening in Nandi. I've seen, Mr. Speaker, that there are things happening in Nyandarua. Mr. Speaker, I want to call upon members of the county assemblies to demand nothing less than accountability from their governors. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for this opportunity. Number one, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to comment about the statement by Senator Eddy Okenyuri. Mr. Speaker, as a young person in this country, Mr. Speaker, it breaks my heart when constantly it seems as though we cannot be able to contain the problem of abduction of young people. And Mr. Speaker, I wanted just to inquire whether there is anything this House can do for resolutions that we have passed, and especially at a presidential level, Mr. Speaker, that aren't followed through. Because, Mr. Speaker, in July, we did pass a resolution here at the heart of chaos in this country. And those resolutions, Mr. Speaker, went to the president of this country. And among the issues that were supposed to be dealt with, apart from just compensation of young people who were affected during the Gen Z movement, Mr. Speaker, we also implored upon the president, Mr. Speaker, that the issue of abductions be responded to very strongly, Mr. Speaker. The reason why I'm doing this, Mr. Speaker, is because the abductions that are happening.
Use the portable microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the abductions that are happening in this country are happening at two levels. One, within structured authorities of governance in this country, and number two, outside those structures. But I think that if there is a force in dealing with the issues of abductions within structure of security in this country, Mr. Speaker, there will be an equal response to those who are doing it outside the structure, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to inquire, and perhaps the majority leader can help us on this, Mr. Speaker, that if we end up having some resolutions in this House, Mr. Speaker, that can be able to pick on some of these issues that we are seeing in terms of abductions in the country, Mr. Speaker, that sometimes end up affecting the security infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, can we know how, if they're not responded to, Mr. Speaker, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I think that it starts by making sure that the abductions that happen within the security infrastructure in this country, Mr. Speaker, are dealt with for once and for all, Mr. Speaker, so that those who are doing it outside the security infrastructure can take it more serious, Mr. Speaker, that you are saying point of order and young people are dying outside here, young people are being abducted, and they're becoming uneasy when there is no security infrastructure in the country.
Eddy, what is your point of order, Senator Oro? We have heard you.
You're just shouting.
My mic. My mic.
I can lend you mine.
Mr. Speaker, understanding Order 105, I have listened to Senator Eddy Oketch talking about abductions happening within the structures of government and outside other structures. And Mr. Speaker, you know, there's an allegation there being placed on, I'm not even sure whether he's targeting an individual in government, whether he's, because he has also mentioned the president at one point. Can he substantiate these structures within government where he's saying that are being used for abduction? Perhaps he knows of a unit, a particular unit that he can even just mention, so that even us as senators, we can come out and call out that unit. We would like to know which is this inside government, maybe, and if he cannot substantiate, he must apologize and withdraw, because this is the upper house. This is not the National Assembly. This is a house of records, a house of procedure, and we carry ourselves with facts. Mr. Speaker, let him substantiate.
Mr.
Which you have to substantiate. The structured abductions.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I was very clear about the document which is a resource of this House that has gone to the President. In that document, we were very clear about a number of issues that we complained about. Unless Senator Gloria was not in this House to listen to what was being discussed in this House, Mr. Speaker, I am very clear in my mind, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, let me say this, Mr. Speaker. Maybe Senator Gloria is comfortable because any of her family members have never been abducted. But abduction of young people in this country must stop. And they happen within the structure of security in this country as well as outside the structure of this country. You might make noise as much as you want, but I can assure you that one day your own family member or your own relative will be abducted and you won't be sitting pretty. We must stop the abduction of young people in this country. It must stop.
Senator Eddy. Order, honorable Senator. Senator Eddy. Order. Senator Fernandez, take your seat. Now, order, Senator Joyce Correct. Order, honorable Senator. This is the House. Senator Eddy, you are supposed to address the chair, not your colleagues. You've been called upon to substantiate an allegation that you've made. Order, honorable senators.
Mr. Speaker.
Sit down, Senator Eddy. Where are you going? Sit down. Sit down. The chair is speaking. Senator for Kilifi, let the chair handle this. Now, Senator Roba rose on a point of order on this allegation that you've said they are structured abductions within the system. So, you've been called upon to substantiate those allegations. What did you mean by structured abductions within government? Instead of responding to that, you've been shouting back at your colleagues. Proceed, Senator Eddy, to substantiate. If you're not in a position to do that today, you know exactly what to do.
Mr. Speaker,
Order.
Mr. Speaker,
Can the senator be heard inside?
Mr. Speaker, it is not my role as a senator of Migori to focus the Senator Oruoba in this House. I refer to a resolution of this House, Mr. Speaker, that is a property of the House passed by all of us. And
Order.
that resolution, Mr. Speaker, that resolution, if you read it, Mr. Speaker, it talks about abductions and killings that this Senate was tired of, addressed to government. Mr. Speaker, if it is addressed to government, Mr. Speaker, and
Senator.
it has not been responded to, Mr.
Eddy,
Speaker.
Senator Eddy, order. Senator Joyce, I caution you. You proceed, I'll throw you out of the chamber. Now, Senator Eddy, look for that document and read the particular resolution that you're relying on. And I'm giving you to do that tomorrow. You may not be able to get the document right away. Look for that document and read that particular resolution that supports your allegation.
Mr. Speaker, that's...
Proceed. Have a seat.
Mr. Speaker, I hadn't finished. They ate on my time, Mr. Speaker. They ate on my time.
Sit down. Take your seat.
Mr. Speaker, you're giving them so they ate on my time.
Take your seat. Senator Omtatah. Senator for Kilifi, you know there is no senator on their feet. You cannot raise on a point of order.
No, he was still standing there when you refused me.
Yeah, but he... Proceed. I did not refuse you. You don't catch my eye. Proceed, Senator Omtatah.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for the opportunity. The question of abductions is a very serious question. Kenya is a republic, a government of law, and you have got institutions that have been mandated to take care of the security of the citizen. And these institutions are basically in terms of civilian order the police. Our streets cannot be an area where people can abduct others, disappear others, run illegitimate detention centers, and then release them, and there are no consequences. When these people are released, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have not heard of any incident whereby the abductees have been guaranteed security and the government security apparatus summoned them to a debriefing to try and identify where they were being held and why they were being held. And that points to collusion by the police in the ongoing abductions. To make matters worse, Mr. Speaker, sir, it's a matter of fact that the capacity of the police to investigate this kind of activities, if at all they involve the police forces, has greatly been eroded. And this was done deliberately under the last command of Inspector General Koome, whereby officers who are trained to deal with this kind of matters and who are housed at the internal affairs internal affairs unit of the National Police Service were systematically transferred out of station. The unit was starved of funds, and it's a pale shadow of what it was when it was set up, with the intention that should any security forces step out of the law, they would be dealt with by the fellow policemen. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, whereby when you don't get the government taking action to debrief those who have been abducted and released, to establish where exactly they were being held, to try and determine who are holding them, then the only conclusion you can draw is that the security forces have failed in their mandate, and for lack of a better word, are complicit in the abductions. And so, Mr. Speaker, sir, the circumstantial evidence that avails itself to an inquisitive eye is that our abductions are being conducted either by the police or with the full knowledge of the police command. And
what is the point of order, Senator Fernandez?
Mr. Speaker, I raise understanding order 105. While I agree that the issue of abductions is a very serious issue in the country, you cannot allow Senator Okiya Omtatah to get away with what he's saying by saying that the abductions that is happening within the country are either state sanctioned or police sanctioned. And talking about defunding a unit. Mr. Speaker, can the senator of Busia table evidence to show that there is complicity or the police are tolerating the abductions that is happening currently in the country, so that we can move forward? If he can table, Mr. Speaker, then we move forward, because he's a litigant. He knows in court you don't carry gossip before a court of law, Mr. Speaker. He must substantiate. This is not a market, Mr. Speaker. This is not a market. This is not a marketplace, Mr. Speaker, where you bring the gossip, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, can you protect me? Mr. Speaker, can you protect me, Mr. Speaker?
No,
can you protect me?
Senator Fernandez.
This is not heckling
Senator
arena.
Fernandez, you've made your case. Take a seat. Now, Senator Omtatah, proceed to substantiate your allegations. To who? To inform who? Who? Just let Senator Omtatah proceed to substantiate.
You want to inform me? We have a lot of business ahead of us.
yes, the issue is the word substantiate. It seems to be an exciting word to some people in this house. When I submitted, I said circumstantial evidence, and I pointed to the circumstantial evidence that I was saying should not be ignored. The circumstantial evidence that none of the people who have been abducted and released has been called to the police for debriefing to establish what has happened. Number two is a statement of fact, and there have even been complaints about the funding of the internal affairs unit of the police.
Which evidence?
Point number 3, the internal affairs unit has had its officers transferred, and this happened under Inspector General Kome. So, as far as I'm concerned, you don't substantiate the obvious.
Mr. Speaker, point of order, table evidence. This guy is not human resources.
You cannot table evidence that something did not happen.
Mr. Speaker, it's not human resources.
You cannot.
No, Senator Omtatah.
Yes.
You're not going to exchange with the Senator for that.
I'm not exchanging, I'm talking to the chair.
You contribute to the House.
I'm choosing not to listen to a heckler.
I'm in charge of this House, and if you need protection, I'll give it to you. Just proceed. You are a professional heckler.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you very much. The issue is, I cannot substantiate what did not happen. I said the police have never called any of the people who are abducted and released to a debriefing for them to tell them where have these people been. The only thing that can happen is for Senator Cherargei to come up with evidence that the police have done that. When I say it has never happened, you cannot ask me to substantiate what never happens.
No, you are being clever by half.
I'm a clever man.
Clever by half.
Senator Fernandez, I'm cautioning you.
So, I have not said anything that requires substantiation.
Conclude, Senator Omtatah.
So, Mr. Speaker, sir, the issues of abductions are very serious matters, and we need, as a House, maybe to have a special sitting where we can summon our security forces, because recently it was reported in the media that the Inspector General of Police said he was not aware of who was abducting people. Yes. So we need them to be summoned to this House to come and tell us why the police has lost control of the security of this country.
Your 3 minutes time is up.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I have nothing else to submit. I'm happy to see the majority leader very calm.
Now, Honorable Senator